Coach Nick, welcome to NBA Weekly. How are things?
Things are good. I'm just knee deep in some Knicks and some Nuggets footage. Knicks and Nuggets. There you go.
Knicks and Nuggets. Speaking of the Nuggets, they were up. They were down 2-0. And then everything went crazy for Minnesota. How much of this is human nature, Coach Nick? I mean, we could talk about the X's and O's. We could talk about Jokic's dominance, but did Minnesota take their foot off the pedal a little bit, especially in that dominant win in game 2 without Rudy?
I mean, I have to imagine, okay, without Rudy, they were in the locker room getting all hyped up, saying we got to bring it and go, and up our game and the whole thing. It was an anomaly. And I think primarily because of the way the referees allowed the game to be so physical. And so since then, I got to go. I keep forgetting to look really carefully in the first quarter to see, did the refs make a couple of quick calls that were like, hey, we're not going to let this happen again? I don't think so. But as a result, the Minnesota has not brought it again. If it's Rudy back and they're all like, hey, we got Rudy now, we don't have to do that. I don't know. But I will tell you that it's the biggest troubling thing I'm doing right now with my video is just the matchups and how Minnesota is deciding to match up. It's not like they're getting caught and they have a choice, whatever. They're deciding to match up a certain way, and it's killing them. And it's probably going to lose them the series.
How so?
Okay. So what we did see, and we've seen this in the past before, is having the non-center, the center not guard Jokic and have like your power forward. So in this instance, we have Cat guarding Jokic, and then you have Rudy who can hover around the basket. They were able to get a little bit in games 2, 3, and 4 from Gordon from the three-point line, even though he's not really a good three-point shooter. But certainly it's worth a trade-off to let him do a couple of those in order to have Rudy hovering around the basket, because what you see in those possessions is that Jokic won't even look at the basket with Cat guarding him. It's remarkable how that happens. Like, they have a whole other mindset. He's not going to be aggressive. As soon as Rudy goes on and starts to guard Jokic, which they do on purpose, everything goes out the window. He just lowers his shoulder, dribbles into the restricted area, and then gets an easy shot. I don't care if you think that Gobert did a good job contesting those shots. If he's shooting it from 6 or 7 feet away, it's a shot he's going to make. Unless he blocks it, it's going to be a makeable shot very easily. And the key here is that those shots are not happening when Cat is guarding him. Cat was not in foul trouble last night. There's just inexplicable 8 minutes in the first quarter. They suddenly switch on an inbounds play. And what does Jokic do? Puts his head down, dribbles right to the restricted area, and does a nice little move and scores over Rudy. I don't understand why they're doing it. It makes no sense to me.
I mean, we could talk about Aaron Gordon because he's great. We could talk about Jamal Murray, who looked a little sped up. Obviously, he was frustrated in game 2. Yeah. But a lot of this comes down to Jokic. What else has he figured out besides who's guarding him?
I mean, I think maybe he was afraid that, well, if I'm too aggressive scoring, then we're not going to be able to win as easily. But he put that to bed last night, man. He had, like 40 points. And by the way, he still had 13 assists. And I would say, I think 4 or 5 of them were in transition. So this is not even a thing where like they're trying to double him and they don't want to double because they'll hit cutters. That's not killing them either that way. So it's like, just to get back to my other points, like, you have to come up with different ways to guard. Otherwise, it's the definition of insanity, expecting a different result by doing the same thing over and over again. So I think that's the key that Jokic is learning, because at some point in this series, as they were getting back into it, it kind of felt like Jamal Murray is the MVP. He's the most important guy. He's the guy driving all this, right? And even in the last round, he did that a couple, game winners and stuff. But when all is said and done, you pull this thing apart, it is Jokic.
What can Minnesota do differently moving forward, or do you feel like it's over for them?
It doesn't have to be over. I mean, all they need to do is stick to the game plan a little bit longer. Continue to keep Cat on him, because for some reason, well, we know why. When Cat is on him and Rudy is hovering, he is reluctant to start dribbling and battering Cat down and get to the basket, because Rudy will be nearby. That's the whole game right there. Keep him out of the paint. So if they focus on that, and they actually went to another lineup I noticed with Naz Reid out there. They did Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert, and Cat. And so now you can kind of do some different things. Maybe you can try Naz on Jokic, and then have Rudy hovering with Cat doing some stuff and hovering. They might want to try that because, again, at this point when you're at an elimination game, you got to try everything. But if they don't do that, I mean, it feels to me that it's the defensive end. Like that's what they hung their hat on all year long. and they're not adjusting. It's weird. Perhaps they were just so dominant in the regular season they didn't have to really deal with this much. But it's a little bit staggering that they're not trying to do more of that. They're not trying to double. I would double Jokic more and like get it out of his hands and then take your chances with the other guys a little bit at least, especially when you have Brown out there and you have Peyton Watson out there. Like those are the guys you wanted to make plays. So make them make plays.
I always thought it wasn't a great idea to double Jokic, though, because he figures it out no matter who his teammates are, you know? I don't know. I just feel like guarding him straight up is better, even though, man, it's tough with Rudy. He's almost an unsolvable problem.
I mean, that is what everyone's trying to say. So it's like, what is Rudy supposed to do? Well, not everybody out there allows Jokic to just batter them down to the paint one-on-one like that so easily. It's too easy. And they have the answer. He doesn't do it on Cat. For whatever reason, maybe Cat's center of gravity is different. Or again, because he knows Rudy's down there, he won't do it. But if you got something that will thwart the main attack of this great player, then you should be doing that all the time. So I get it. And by the way, like you watching those moves, they are great. He's pivoting, he's stepping through,
Yeah.
he's interesting finishes. It's really hard, but they're letting him. And that's the whole problem. At this point, stop letting him and try doing something else, please.
How do you see the rest of the series going?
I mean, I would imagine that all the momentum is on Denver's side. They've kind of solved all this stuff. Can Minnesota bring it? Is Mike Conley going to play in Game 6? Do we know?
I don't think we know yet, but there was a chance he played last game, and then all of a sudden he was out.
Yeah, and so I can tell you this: if Mike, and by the way, I'm not even sure I love the way Mike Conley plays with the Minnesota Timberwolves, but like they're going to need him if they're going to extend the series. So he's going to have to play. He's going to have to play like he's not injured for them to have a chance.
Yeah, is Mike? Is he really like an X factor? Because when I remember we're playing overseas, a teammate used to tell me you always miss what you don't have, right? Like I think they still have a chance to win without Mike, even though Mike is great and he brings presence to on the court and off the court as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's a starter. If you lose a starter, it just makes it a lot harder for everybody else. Everyone else's roles in the backcourt change. And then, Alexander Walker has to play differently, although he did nicely. But, there is a level of comfortability there and a little bit of rhythm that he brings. And so, yeah, they're going to need everything to kind of go pretty perfectly for them to hold on and take this or get the game back to Game 7 at least. But the bottom line is Denver's going to win the series. It's a question of, at home or away. If Mike Conley doesn't play, then I'm going to have to say it's pretty easy. Just Denver's going to win in 6.
So the NBA is all about spacing, Coach Nick, and we move on to Knicks versus Pacers. Tibbs makes a little bit of a change in the starting lineup, adds in McBride. What did that do for the team's spacing, and how important was that? Or was it just the Knicks' heart? Like they were just going to win anyway?
Well, here I'm doing the video. I'm combining the Knicks and the Nuggets because the way the Pacers are guarding Brunson is the same frustrating way that they're guarding Jokic. And so by doing Deuce McBride out there or putting him out there, they're letting him ball screen and flare out and getting threes because they want to double Brunson on those, thinking that McBride isn't necessarily a playmaker. There's no rotation on the other side, though. So he's open on all of these. And I mean, he's good. I don't even know. I mean, he was obscure because he didn't get a lot of playing time. But this guy competes. He's a really good athlete. He can shoot the ball. I'm not even in love with his mechanics, really, but he seems to prove to me that he can nail that long ball. So he's bringing all that. I know Tibbs is all about the energy and wants to see him do that, but he's making the plays too. And on the other side too, he actually had a reverse layup that was really nice on a cut. He's just every game he's getting more and more comfortable out there. But another athlete, another playmaker, and a guy that they can put in situations where they can lure the defense out of position toward Brunson, and then he can make a play.
He could make some like big man type shots too. I remember they doubled Brunson and he hit that top of the key 3, kind of like a stretch 4 would, right? I mean, That's a tough shot. I never liked the top of the key shot too much. I like the wings and the corners better. That's me personally as a basketball player. What do you feel about that top of the key shot? It's a little weird, right, in the game.
Well, I have to imagine, like, I'm trying to remember when I was, growing up and developing my 3-point shot, you probably spent a lot more time on the wings.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even sure why. Maybe just because that's the first pass in the offense.
I guess like in original offense, the point guard would be up top a lot, right? Like that'd be the guy who I'd be occupying that space.
Yeah. Like so growing up, if you brought the ball up, you were never going to shoot that 3 off the dribble that straight on, right?
Right.
That was probably why we all focused it more on like corner or wings. I would imagine going forward for kids now, that top of the key will not be very strange at all. That'll be a very normal shot that everyone shoots a lot of. I know I train it with my guys too. So, but I suppose there's a background difference, and with an angle, it just might feel like with the way the backboard is when you're on the wings, maybe a little bit easier to shoot. And when you're at straight away, it might feel like, oh, I can miss this left or right. It's like it's harder to deal with, I guess.
So, Coach Nick, let me ask you, what have you made of Brunson last game? Is he the best player in the playoffs so far?
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's tough because we've seen some really great performances. Like Anthony Edwards has been awesome, but it's been up and down for him. So that's not that you couldn't pick him, especially because you're looking at Brunson being much more like consistent across the board and shouldering the kind of weight that he is. So yeah, I think I might have to give it to him, especially because there is so much focus on him, and yet he continues to just do his business. Again, he's a little bit lucky that the Pacers are letting him ISO one-on-one way more than they should be. It's very, very strange. It's like, I know that DiVincenzo can make some plays, Hart can make a play or two, but you got to make them make more plays because this is crazy what he's doing. He had an inside-out move on Nembhard that I actually felt bad for Nembhard. In out with the shoulder head fake. He just stepped out of the way. But then, by the way, the finish was not easy. He had to go off-foot floater over the big and made it look like no one was out there. It made it look like he was just laying him in with, like he was in sixth grade. It was crazy how good he is.
And also, we've seen an emergence, the return of Alec Burks. I mean, he's making some shots. He's been really good over the past few games when he was kind of quiet coming over from Detroit during the regular season.
I mean, the definition of a professional, right? That's what you have to be able to do. And I know him a little bit. Like, he's a real centered guy. Like, nothing ruffles him very much. So I can imagine he was probably able to deal with it to some degree. I could also figure that like Tibbs probably wouldn't have wanted to play him much because he doesn't have that grit and determination defensively, I suppose, that he would want. And so that's why, like, I'm sure he didn't like trust that he wanted to put him in there, but it's kind of a shame. Like, they probably could have used him a lot more and made this path even easier because, again, he can give you 12, 13 points as a microwave off the bench there and make good decisions. He had a beautiful play where I think he did like a drive and then a quick jump stop pass fake and then hit the little like 10-footers. Beautiful. Like, that's a vet move under control and the kind of guys you want out there for you.
So as a player, Coach Nick, I always loved playing the whole game. Like, I wanted to get my stats, Coach Nick. But, every time Tibbs is playing these guys like Josh Hart for the full game, he gets criticism, but only after losses, right? The Knicks look tired because of Tibbs. What are your thoughts on that strategy, just playing guys a whole bunch of minutes and leading on your best players that much?
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit of a problem because you run the risk of something like OG Anunoby, which I'm going to choose to believe that hamstring injury was overuse because the Pacers were trying to do was they were pressing a lot and they were getting them up and down and having to exert more energy than normal, even just for them. So, it would be nice to think that even in the playoffs, you can win a game by playing without having to play your guys 41 minutes in a game, right? You like to think you have enough depth there. And he's slowly finding out that maybe he did without realizing it with guys like Burks coming off the bench. So I don't know, because the other argument would be because they play a lot of minutes, even in the regular season, they're like tough, they're steeled, they're ready to compete, they're in shape, all those things that you might not have if you were getting your minutes managed. So I'm kind of on the fence, but I do feel like there's a maximum that you probably should be playing, and I don't think it's 40. And then here we are with Hart. It makes me nervous a little bit, but man, when you watch Hart with his energy, it doesn't seem to matter to him at all. But it makes me a little bit nervous.
I think one adjustment the Pacers have to make is Tyrese just playing a little better. It's that simple sometimes. But I love what Rick has done with the Pacers in general, like just embracing modern basketball. But they do seem like a high variance team, right? Like sometimes they could win by 30, sometimes they could lose by 30. And that's why they were so good in the in-season tournament. It was like a March Madness style of play. But what adjustments do you feel he could make moving forward?
Yeah, listen, the Knicks are a better team. I think that's clear no matter what they're going to do. So I know I'm going to give some crap to the coaching staff for not adjusting more. But what you do take away is that Brunson is far away better than anybody on the Pacers, right? And then from there, So the adjustment, though, is you must get the ball out of Brunson's hands by any means necessary. I would do it in the backcourt. I would do it earlier. I would also, when you do it, you have to be able to drill it so that they rotate properly. In fact, they had one where they blast, and they did blast a little bit, but then the rotations were bad. And one of them, and here's the other problem with that is that the Knicks are so well coached that as soon as a double team comes, Brunson's giving it up and they are all moving. It's kind of basic in a way, but they all move together as a team. So they flash the nail and he makes that pass. Usually it's from the guy who's doubling him, that the doubler's man, who is the one who cuts and is open because that's his man went to Brunson. They hit at the free throw line, then there's a cutter on the other side, and then they hit him for the layup. Some version of that, or the cutter can shoot it too. So, and it's quick and it's good spacing, and they never miss a beat on those. So it is tough, but they're going to have to do more of this anyway. The best one I saw was they hit the nail, and then Hartenstein comes up to set a pin down, knowing that his man has to rotate up to the three, and that was McBride hitting another three on top. And the screen was there. Turner would have been there had the screen not been there. And so he can't get there. They get an open another look, and now they're demoralized. It's like, well, this doubling doesn't work, coach. But it has to work because Turner needs to be better, needs to get around those screens, needs to see that stuff better. And until they do that, then they're going to be behind the eight ball and not able to win the series.
Yeah, I agree. The coaching has been great, but I think also a lot of that is the personnel that the Knicks have, because Hartenstein and Hart, the two Harts, are such great connective pieces.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, Hartenstein's a great passer, and he hasn't even had a good pass, I don't think. Maybe he had a nice backdoor pass in the last game. He usually does at least one of those, and it just makes it so hard because now you don't know if he's going to pass or shoot. So the passing big man, might be the thing. I know we talk about Jokic scoring by 40 or whatever, but it's the passing from that position that really gives you an advantage. Obviously, the Pacers don't have that. Turner doesn't pass like that. And so you put that together, and then Hart gets all the 30-70 balls. DiVincenzo is also a guy who with the Lions heart. I don't think I love what he was doing last night, but he has heart, and so you can put him in the hearts as well. And so it's those guys together. Yeah. So, and by the way, we talk about the Villanova guys who play together and have forged all that, that chemistry. Hartenstein is just might as well played at Villanova the way he did.
He's been on their podcast, so why not?
Yeah. And that's a hilarious podcast. I would recommend listening to it.
What's interesting? I feel like it's so important for the modern big to be able to pass, and you need somebody from any position because the point guard is kind of phased out. So we need the passing from different positions now. It's all about meshing skill sets and tendencies. And
by the way, you're saying it's a modern thing for the big man to be able to pass. That's from the original. That's from the 1910s. How they did it when they originally.
It was like in the high post, right? Then they would run off them.
Oh yeah, high post with the wheel, and they guys, which we see kind of like what Jokic does now. I should probably do that video in the offseason where I show, even Globetrotters from the 40s running that same offense back when they actually.
Right, I was thinking Globetrotters right when you said that, because they got the high post, the guy, and then they got the 3-man weave.
And but even before they were playing it for entertainment, they played it straight in the 40s, and they would beat teams all over the place by playing, real basketball with a little bit of flair or a lot of flair. And so you'd see it there, but you'd see Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the high post in Milwaukee waving the ball around as everyone's cutting and moving and sprinting around. So, this is actually the old school version of basketball, but I love the fact that you can merge the modern skill level with all the ancient techniques that they developed right away, because it shows you how smart the coaches were back then in terms of X's and O's and strategy. They understood how a rectangular court is divided up and how you can attack with angles. And so that hasn't changed even to this day.
Attacking with angles, it makes me think of SGA, but this series is now tied up 2-2. I mentioned SGA, but let's start with the Mavericks, because I feel that with the Mavericks, everything was going to come down to there's others making shots, but Luka hasn't been that great. And some of that's probably because of the injury. Some of that is because of his attitude. He just don't seem happy out there. It's not smiling. Luka, what have you made of his play, and what have you made of the Mavericks play in general?
Well, I mean, if you're being assaulted by Dort for 40 minutes a game, you wouldn't be happy either. I wouldn't have a smile on your face.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it. But I think the injury is a huge part of it as well. He's probably 70%. But the fact that they're right there and they're competing anyway in the last couple of games, and they have those shots with Luka being where he is, it should be relatively encouraging for the Mavericks. I think, one thing that stuck out of my mind is Tim Hardaway Jr. They have to find the optimal amount of minutes to play him and then get him out right before they go over that, because he can give you good stuff.
It's like the Westbrook thing a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. When they got Westbrook to like 20 minutes a game, like that was when you were getting of the best part of him and not and cleaving off the parts that you don't want. And it's the same with THA. Like he had a turnover at the end of the game where he probably just shouldn't have been in the game. He gave you some threes. I believe he had a couple threes. He made some nice plays. And then it's time. It's like get somebody in there that's a little bit more steady who's not going to make mistakes. I think that was one of two mistakes that he made, I think, down the stretch. And so he fits. And it's nice to have him, but you can't rely on him too much and go too deep into that game with him. And if they can figure that part out, then I would imagine then they should be able to. I don't know. I kind of felt like they have the in the beginning of the series. I felt like OKC was just going to win. There was no. I don't think I felt Dallas really had much of a chance. But now it just seems like Dallas is figuring enough things out. Their bigs, PJ Washington is now, being able to thrive in his role while they ignore him off the corners and stuff. And so it just feels like they've got enough of everything and experience to take the series.
I mean, Jokic is a guy who loves the basketball, but I feel like when a guy like Dort is guarding you, you need to find ways to score off the ball as well.
Oh, I agree. I mean, you also need to find ways to let Luka do his thing without having to expend so much energy off the perimeter dribbling stuff, which would probably to me mean like posting up more would be the big one. So that's one. And then trying to run him off screens, but trying to get Dort off of screens is, I don't know how easy that is, if at all. It's like he sticks to Luka like glue. And that will also tire Luka out as well, trying to run around screens, right? So I think that they should find some more post-ups, add another 4 or 5 of them, maybe an extra foul in there on Dort, who seems to be willing to take all 6 fouls, some unnecessarily. Did you see the Dort play where they kick it out to the corner and he just lays out and tries to dive after a pass?
Yeah.
He's got to tone it down. I think he should tone it down 10%. Really, he's doing too much, and it's putting him in bad positions, and he's getting bad fouls. I didn't even think he wasn't trying to hurt anybody. Although when he landed and slid, he almost took out the shooter's legs. I think the shooter even made the shot. That had nothing to do with like that. He wasn't trying to hurt anybody. I think he literally was just trying to dive to try and get a hand on a pass, which is almost impossible because the pass always goes faster than anybody can move.
Way back, I remember talking about before OKC was even close to title contenders about the Josh Giddey SGA fit being a little bit clunky. What are your thoughts on Giddey's minutes being decreased at this level?
Well, it's funny because now he really doesn't have much effect on the game. He starts, he plays his 5 or 6 minutes in the first quarter, and he plays his 5 or 6 minutes in the third quarter alongside starters. The problem is those lineups in the net rating are terrible, and then you shove Isaiah Joe in there alongside the starters instead of Giddey, and they perk up immediately. So why start the game behind the 8 ball, right? You might as well, and that, which also then means, well, I mean, does that mean he doesn't play at all? I suppose you could probably find some minutes somewhere in there because he can help, and he was able to take advantage of some of the ignoring of him, which they're flat out ignoring him, and he was able to get some shots in that way. But the numbers aren't lying on this one as far as the 5-man unit playing alongside him. So I think that they're going to have. I mean, I know they don't want to disrupt chemistry, and they have the starters, whatever. But if I were Dagnall, I would definitely take a hard look at starting Isaiah Joe. And then try and find some minutes for Giddey, in that second quarter.
How do you feel about his value when it comes to the rest of the league? Do you think he's a better player somewhere else?
Giddey?
Yeah.
I mean, we had seen him be a really good passer for a long time. And so I think that skill has kind of gone away, right? He's sort of been relegated to the perimeter, waiting for a pass to come out. Every once in a while, he'll do a nice little pass, but it wasn't like he can dribble the ball 4 times on a move and then, hit somebody like he was doing. So, yeah, if he had a different role like that, I'm sure he could probably find even more success. But the shooting is always going to be a problem because we've seen how, ball handlers like that who can't spread the floor can be shut down, and it makes it a lot harder for everybody else. So, his answer really is just going to be let somebody help him fix his shot.
Does this come down to Luka just playing better? What could Jason Kidd do differently?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I think yes, they have to hope that Luka can feel a little bit better, get some more treatment. Maybe his knee stops bleeding from all the injections, which is scary. But that's one of the big ones. Is that yeah, and by the way, I'm sure he'll have another big game in the series. Like I'm sure he'll find one. He'll eke one out in and it'll be hard and it'll be painful, or whatever. But he'll probably be able to do that. And by the way, defensively, he's been making some plays. He's been moving around a little bit. Like, if you could get like two good defensive plays out of him in a game, like that's really good. Like you're doing pretty well because he'll be neutral on a whole bunch where the action's not near him or whatever. And then he'll probably give up a few. But if you can get two or three, nice, good closeouts here, a deflection there, a really tough rebound here, like that's the kind of stuff that's enough for them that they could actually, shift the results of the game too.
All right. We've talked about the Celtics on the B-Ball Breakdown live show, but then we end up not talking about them that much because to us, it's just kind of boring. But why are they so boring? They were dominant in the regular season, all these dominating numbers. They were all time. But what is it about these Celtics, Coach Nick?
Well, watch the first quarter half court possessions against Cleveland in the last game, which is what I just did before I joined the show. I wanted to kind of get my brain wrapped around it. It's horrible. Their offense is horrible.
Yes, yeah, I totally agree. Like I thought that they just out-talented the Cavs last game, but the offense, they were just like going ISO even out of timeouts.
Oh, I know. And there's no
Yeah.
movement. And even in the best of times, there doesn't seem to be a lot of movement, no cutting, tough shots, yeah, really, really frustrating stuff like that. And so, yeah, like, and listen, Tatum, they can make really tough shots, and Brown again drives left and just loses the ball on a drive in the first quarter. And like, not that it doesn't happen to everybody, but like, I hate to see him when he goes left and loses it because it just adds to that, whatever that narrative is, which I'm not even sure it makes sense, but like, nonetheless, it just, they're making it hard on themselves. And I can kind of get it. Donovan Mitchell wasn't playing, so they just were already like, well, hey, we can take this team. And of course, that wasn't so easy, right? And everyone's now wondering about that, like, oh, a much depleted Cleveland Cavaliers team, they can't even put them down early in a playoff game. And that happens, right? The big star goes out, the other players step up. Karis LeVert, like they're not prepared, the game plan's different. But there is something to it, and I have to imagine a guy like Thibodeau is looking at what they're running offensively and really getting excited because his defense could shut that down and certainly make those shots that you see Tatum and Brown make even harder, and less likely to go in. And if the vibes turn because of that, and it's a little bit more physical, which the Knicks will certainly be, even though the Cavs are a good defensive team, the Knicks are much more physical. Like that's what you got to worry about, because when the vibes turn with the kind of difficult shot making they need to do to win, then I don't know what happens in a Knicks Celtics series. That'd be fascinating.
It feels like the Celtics' uniqueness is out the window a little bit because Porzingis just isn't there. They're missing the unicorn, man. They're missing the unicorn.
Yeah. I mean, certainly the pick and pops that he does really changes their offense, and which is sort of what we're missing. But then again, even those pick and pops, the ball doesn't go below the free throw line before it gets shot. And like part of what I do when I'm rating offense generally is like, are you getting in the paint? Are you getting penetration? Is the ball getting below the free throw line? Or are you just doing 5 out and the ball just is getting passed along the perimeter? That's not a viable offense deep in the playoffs. And that's what we're seeing right now with what the Celtics are doing. And so even with Porzingis there, you do get a little bit of rolling when he does roll, and he'll get a little bit of a post presence sometimes. I saw I think Horford will wander down there to the block a little bit, but they need more of all of that. And then defensively, obviously, I think Porzingis does help, and he can erase mistakes that they make near the rim. So that'll help as well. But I suppose if I had to think that there's a weakness with the Celtics, I'm just worried about their offense, honestly, and being able to generate enough good shots.
And also their big depth, right? Their depth at the big position. But Porzingis out, Horford moving a little bit slower. They're not really utilizing Tillman, maybe a little bit more Tillman minutes. But I mean, when they're going to have to go against either Minnesota, which I doubt at this point, Denver with Jokic, I mean, even Chet with OKC, I mean, it's going to be a struggle. And even with the Knicks, I mean, Porzingis is a guy that could cause the Knicks problems in that series.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Cornette got some run early, and he's
solid. Yeah.
He's not going to make mistakes.
Cornette closeout. Go check out the Coach Nick video on the Cornette closeout. I do that in my pickup run, by the way. It annoys people.
Yeah, there's something to it. Like if you go watch, I interviewed him, and he said, and he maybe in the interview, and I think behind the scenes, he's like, yeah, like there is some evidence that what the expected 3-point percentage is on those shots goes down, or it's lower than the expected 3-point percentage. Which again, if that really was the case, then and you can kind of eliminate closeouts. Why not just jump straight up from near the basket, especially if you're big, wave your arms around or something. Imagine if that had the same effect as a real closeout. That would change things, and we need something to change because the defensive stuff that we're doing now is it's getting less and less optimal day by day.
Where do you think the Cavs go from here? Because it does look like they're going to lose this series, and Donovan Mitchell might be heading out of town.
It's weird how like narratives take hold, right? All of a sudden, somebody whispers something, and next thing you know, maybe he wants to leave. It's weird to me that Mitchell's already a free agent,
Yeah.
right? It seems like, I mean, I guess he got traded from Utah, and he got to Cleveland. I guess they didn't sign an extension with him or something. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, but get to the point is what happens there. Yeah, I mean that's brutal because they really can't afford to lose him for nothing, right? Did you notice who was in the front row of the last Cleveland Cavaliers game?
LeBron James.
Yes, and you know it's funny. Somebody reminded me, or I saw on Twitter that something similar happened as he was on his way out of Miami, where he ended up showing up for a Cleveland game or something weird like that. I can't remember exactly how that went. Although that wouldn't make sense because he was playing for Miami in 2014. There wouldn't have been a game in between him going back to Cleveland, right? What was?
Bronny, but how about Bronny and LeBron to Cleveland? Maybe that's a real thing.
Oh, okay. So let's get to that. So I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking, okay, is there some signal? Because again, it's extremely rare for a superstar of one team to appear at another team's home game during the playoffs, right? It's very rare. Who's active, right? Maybe the older guys come back and sit in the front row, you know, not like the owner's box or whatever. So then I said, okay, well, yeah, what pick did Cleveland get in the draft? And they got number 20. So
Mm.
now I'm thinking, that would probably be the spot they think, oh
I,
yeah, they could take Bronny there.
I kind of like the idea of LeBron with Cleveland, not only for LeBron, not only for Cleveland, but I think that's a nicer mix with Darius Garland than Donovan Mitchell. I kind of like, I think Darius Garland, see, like, is Maxey really better than like a Garland, or he just is in a better situation than a Garland, you know, because he gets so many more on ball reps. And I know you think LeBron, you're probably thinking LeBron needs a lot of on ball reps, but you know, I think he could play off the ball a little bit better than Donovan Mitchell.
I get my mind is spinning. I'm trying to think of wrap my head around. Like, I was just thinking about the Bronny and the old
Go ahead, go ahead.
LeBron actually fit there alongside Jared Allen. I mean, Jared Allen's the guy he would need alongside him, right? It's sort of what they were missing in LA, right? LA's best when they had AD there was also gosh, who's the lefty center? Well, they had Dwight Howard, and they had the journeyman lefty center who played for Dallas. He played for everywhere. Crap, who am I thinking of? And he's hilarious.
JaVale McGee?
JaVale McGee. Thank you. I was like, JaVale McGee. So, like that kind of player. And by the way, like Jackson Hayes was sort of supposed to sort of fit into that role either, but he's just a little too young still and undeveloped. But so yeah, so Jared Allen there would be that kind of guy that would fit in really nicely. And then, you know, Evan Mobley around him too. So that kind of works nicely for a front court as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in Cleveland again. He seems to want to, you know, he has a bit of a wandering eye. And you know, it's not working that well in LA. They got rid of the coach. They're looking for a new one. I suppose if they hire JJ, that means that LeBron stays. That might mean that might be the reason why JJ gets hired. Maybe the Lakers are like, we have to keep LeBron. Who do you want? And we'll hire him. But I also feel like, did this happen where I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they hired the coach in Cleveland in 2010 that LeBron wanted, and he still bolted for Miami. Right? Did Mike Brown get fired right then, and then they hired the new coach? Or you know what I'm saying? I can't remember now, but I almost feel like they had hired the coach that LeBron wanted, and then LeBron's like, yeah, I'm out of here. Sorry.
JJ is a polarizing topic when it comes to the next coach of the Lakers, because they feel like he just doesn't have the experience of other coaches. But then we seen Steve Kerr, you know, make a nice transfer from media to become an NBA head coach and an NBA champion at the coaching position. But I think I like the idea. I mean, I think you have to be progressive in the modern NBA. I don't know if it has to be so traditional.
I mean, listen, you're right. You can't say that it can't work because yeah, Steve Kerr did do it. And he was the only guy, but Steve Kerr did have general manager experience.
True.
He did
Any coach under Pop, right? I mean, not coach. He played under Pop and he played under Phil Jackson, which helps a lot. I don't know
yeah,
if JJ has had those type of coaches.
right. JJ had Stan and
Dan's a
Doc.
good coach. I mean,
Yeah.
Doc's a champion, but
Yeah. So but they're not, they're not Pop and they're not Phil.
right.
But so yeah, so like yeah, I can't tell you that it's a bad idea, right? We just don't know really. There's probably been a lot more ex-players without experience who haven't done great than the other way around. Even like Scott Brooks, I'm trying to think like he actually was an assistant for a while, if my memory serves. Most of those guys were. It was actually right when I think Kerr might still be the only guy I could think of who's an ex-player who got hired as a head coach without any experience.
Jason Kidd, Steve Nash, right? Jason Kidd, Steve Nash.
Jason Kidd. Steve Nash is a little different. I mean, he was sort of assistant coaching with the Warriors, like a little bit, he had some in the Team Canada. So he had a little bit of stuff like there. But okay, so Jason Kidd is probably the only other guy. That didn't really work out great, at least in the beginning. But it's gotten better for sure. And so yeah. But the thing is, the timetable for LeBron is now. So, that's rough, to try and figure that out. But, I would probably say odds are that it's a good shot that JJ is going to get hired, only because, again, they're going to probably do everything they can to make sure he stays.
Coach Nick. Yep. Coach Nick, where can we find your latest videos? Where can we find you on social media?
Oh, please go to B-Ball Breakdown on YouTube. Just type in the word B-Ball and it'll autofill for you. I've been around that long. And then check everything out there. If you want to engage in a Twitter discussion with me, I'm there way too often, way too much. I tend to respond. So it is not a bad way to directly interact with me there as well. But YouTube is the name of the game.
Subscribe to B-Ball Breakdown. Subscribe to the NBA Report. Drop a like, drop a comment, share this episode.
One person about it. Tell one other person that you know about this show.
Yeah, about all the shows, B-Ball Breakdown right here on the NBA Report. Subscribe to the NBA Report and drop a like, share it, all that good stuff. Coach Nick, thanks for taking the time. And I'm sure we'll be talking really soon.
You're absolutely right. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Later.